Hi, everyone. Thank you for being patient with us today as we hold our first assembly for the spring semester. My name is Mr. Bravo. Today we have a presentation that we would like to share with you guys. But before we do, I would also like to introduce you to a brand new community member that we have here at the U. Without further ado, Miss Evie, go ahead and present yourself.
Hi, everyone. As Mr. Bravo mentioned, I am new to the U. I'll be working with him to support students, so please feel free to drop by at any time. We're here to help you, and we're also here to refer you. Anything you can think of that you might need, we're here to help.
Cool. All right. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Miss Rosal, or you can call me Miss R for short. It's a little bit easier. For those of you who don't know me, I am the psychiatric social worker here at the U. I know that's kind of a big title, but basically what my role here is to provide mental health support for all the students here. So I have met so many of you guys here, and I just want to give a shout out to all of you who I've already met and have had like amazing conversations with. And I just want to give a shout out and tell you guys are amazing, you're resilient, and I'm looking forward to meeting so many more of you. So I'm here on campus Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and I'm upstairs in room 49. So that's the design lab. So if you've ever been in that room and you're like, what is that weird noise coming up in that balcony? That's probably me, just like minding my own business, doing my own thing. So if ever you want to come say hi, or if you ever need like a safe space to get that mental health support, right? It's such a huge time to be able to get that support right now, especially with everything going on in the world, going on at home, in our communities, right? So I really want to be available to you guys as much as possible. So that's me. And today we're going to be getting into a topic about boundaries and consent in terms of our relationship. So let me go ahead and pull up our presentation. Is that okay? We good? All right, cool. So today we're going to be talking about boundaries and consent and what they mean in the context of our relationships. Okay, so all of us, we're all in relationship with each other, right? Whether we like it or not, whether they be relationships with our family, our friends, even our dating relationships. And it's important that when we're talking about relationships, we also talk about boundaries. So some of you guys may know some of this information that's going to be presented. Some of you, this is going to be the first time learning about boundaries, learning about what consent is. And that's okay. I want to be able to honor that because some of us, we weren't taught what boundaries were, but that's what we're here for. We're here to learn from each other. And yeah, it's that these topics are so important to talk about. Here at the U, Mr. Ra drills it in you guys every week, right? What are the core values of this school? Love, respect, work hard, and follow through, right? So learning about boundaries and consent are so important because they teach us about love. They teach us about respect for ourselves and each other so that we can be in healthier relationships to each other. All right, so let's get into it. Yeah. So objectives today for our presentation, we're going to understand what are personal boundaries. We're going to learn about the different types of boundaries. We're going to understand the concept of consent and what that looks like in everyday consent, everyday situations, and also within dating relationships as well. We're going to share a little bit about tips on creating healthy boundaries and learning also how to seek support and resources on campus, who and how to reach out to for support. Okay, so first, let's talk about boundaries. Okay, so what are our personal boundaries? Personal boundaries are the limits and the rules we set for ourselves within relationships. Okay, they are a way that we take care of ourselves. Boundaries are your values, your principles, and the limits that you establish to keep yourself feeling safe physically, emotionally, and mentally. Okay, so boundaries, there are different types of boundaries, and we're going to talk about each one of them so we can get a better understanding of what boundaries are and how we can start setting healthier boundaries for ourselves. All right. So the first one, it's pretty straightforward, right? Physical boundaries. Let's see. So physical boundaries refers to our personal space and physical touch, right? So the way I like to think about like our personal space is like if you spread out your arms straight across, and it creates like this bubble. And you imagine this imaginary bubble around you. That is your personal space, and you get to decide how big or small your personal space is depending on who you're with and who you're around, right? So it's important to understand everyone has their own boundary of what they want their personal space to be. Healthy physical boundaries include an awareness of what's appropriate and what's inappropriate in different places and with different people. Okay, our physical boundaries are violated then when someone touches you when you don't want to, or when they invade your personal space. So understanding that you get to decide what are your physical boundaries. Is someone that you don't feel comfortable with in your personal space and doing something that you're not comfortable with physically, then that's where you get to set that boundary of like, hey, I'm not comfortable with that, right? So take some time. Think about it. What is your physical boundary for yourself? How big is your bubble in terms of certain people that you're close to or that you're not comfortable with, right? Obviously, with strangers, people you're not so comfortable with, it's going to be a bigger personal space, personal bubble for you. And others, like your loved ones, your friends, going to be a little bit closer because you feel more comfortable having them around you. Okay, so physical boundaries, that's one aspect. Next, we're going to talk about material. This is another kind of straightforward one. Our material boundaries refer to like our possessions, our belongings, our money even. And we get to set limits on what you share and who you want to share with. So like your phone, your backpack, your belongings, right? Have you ever had a friend who would borrow something constantly? Like let's say a sweater, for example, right? And each time you let them borrow your sweater, you notice that they're not taking care of it, right? They're getting it dirty. You notice it's messed up each time you get it back, and you're like, hey, that's my sweater, right? So we get to set limits on what we share and who we want to share with. And clearly, our boundaries with our belongings are violated when someone steals or damages another person's belongings, or when someone pressures another person to give or borrow things. So again, take some time. How are you putting boundaries on your own belongings, right? How are you respecting your own space and what you have, who you share, and what you share? Okay, next one. This one's a little bit harder. I think a lot of us have a tough time when it comes to emotional boundaries, okay? So emotional boundaries have to do with your own personal feelings, right? An understanding that everyone has their own inner experience of feelings, right? Moving inside out, what are the basic feelings? Happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust. Recognizing that each of us has our own inner experience and they are valid. Okay. So when it comes to our emotional boundaries, let's say you're having a day and you're experiencing some sadness, right? And it's just not a good day. That means you get to decide what are the limitations on what I want to share, when I want to share it, and who I want to share it with, right? And that includes your own personal information. And again, you get to decide for yourself what you're comfortable with. Now, this is important because our emotional boundaries, when it comes to relationships with other people, they can be violated when someone belittles criticizes or invalidates your feelings. So have you ever had an experience where, you're having a bad day, you're having a mood, and someone, a friend comes up to you and tells you like, oh, you shouldn't be sad though. Like you shouldn't be feeling those things. Why are you feeling that way? And there's a lot of judgment there. There's a lot of criticism, right? And that's where we get to decide, hey, like, no, I'm experiencing something, and that judgment is not okay. So then we get to set a boundary of, hey, I don't feel comfortable sharing this experience with this specific person, but I feel comfortable with sharing with this person because they're able to empathize with me. They're able to understand and hold space for me. Okay. So again, recognizing we each have our own emotional experiences, and so does each person. And we get to decide how and what to share with other people, and respecting when other people want to share and don't want to share with us. Okay. Next one. This one, again, can bring up some heavy feelings, can bring up some discomfort. So I want to honor that, right? But the next one is going to be about sexual boundaries, okay? And this refers to the emotional, intellectual, and physical aspects of sexuality, okay? Healthy sexual boundaries involve mutual understanding and respect of limitations and desires between partners. And those boundaries can be violated with unwanted sexual touch, pressure to engage in sexual acts, and sexual comments. Okay, this is a big one, and we're going to get into it a little bit further when we talk more about consent in terms of sexual relationships or dating relationships. So again, I understand this can bring up some discomfort. So we'll talk about, again, if you need someone to talk to, reaching out for support and how to do that. Okay. But again, remembering that we get to decide what we are comfortable with, and we can communicate what those boundaries are with other people around us. Okay. Next one, time boundaries. I know a lot of us don't think of time as having boundaries, but we do. We get to set boundaries on our time because it refers to how each of us uses our time. Okay. And they're violated when someone uses too much of another person's time, for example, right? So a friend tells you to wait for them 3 p.m. to watch a movie together, and they don't show up. You wait for them for 4 hours before they tell you that they forgot. First of all, I don't know who would wait 4 hours when a movie is about to start at 3 p.m. Give you 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes at most, but I'm not missing those previews, right? So we get to say, hey, my time it's got to be respected, right? My time is precious. And so when you tell me 3 p.m., I expect that. And if someone doesn't respect that for you, then you are able to set a boundary around your own time. Next one, last one, I think, is intellectual boundaries. Respecting someone's thoughts, opinions, and ideas. And remembering, just like emotional boundaries, everyone has their own thoughts, opinions, and ideas, and being able to respect that. Okay. So example of this is like during the holidays, like, an example a lot of people use is, we don't talk about politics at the family table, right? That's just not the time and place. We're not going to do it, right? So that's a boundary for certain families, okay? Knowing when to discuss certain things with certain people, a certain time and place. And these boundaries can be violated when someone dismisses or belittles another person's ideas, okay? So again, understanding we each have our own thoughts and opinions and ideas, and being able to respect them. I will say, though, I will add to this, I'm a big proponent if someone is making racist, homophobic, xenophobic comments that are just, very disrespectful. I'm a big proponent in being able to speak up and respectfully say, hey, I noticed that you mentioned some derogatory term, being able to call that out when necessary. Okay. All right. So now we kind of went through overall these types of boundaries, right? So I want you to be able to take some time, going through each of these types of boundaries, being able to self-reflect a little bit, seeing where have your boundaries been really strong, or where have your boundaries been a little weak and you want to be able to put more boundaries on certain people in your life. So being able to take the time to reflect on that. Okay. Next, we're going to go on to consent. Okay, so what is consent? Usually, when we talk about consent or if you hear about consent, it's in terms of, you know, romantic dating relationships and sexual relationships, right? But first, we're going to start off talking about consent in our everyday lives, right? So let's talk about that. And I'm going to start by showing a video. Let me just do that. Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Percy, and today I'm going to see exactly what happens when I do things without asking for permission. Let's go.
What are you doing?
Just having a sip.
That's my coffee.
Yeah, but you just left it on the table.
You can't just take it. Yeah, so you know, like if I'm gonna go to this party or not, like, I'm gonna be like, thinking, oh, like, I don't really know if I want you to have it. What are you doing?
Just holding your hand.
Why?
I just want to hold your
No,
hand.
I don't want you to.
Well, I'm just trying to hold
No,
your hand.
thanks. I don't want you to. Sorry.
I want to hold your hand. Come back.
Hey,
Sorry, I just need to make a quick phone call.
but that's my phone though.
Yeah, but you're smiling, so it's okay.
Are you joking? Give me my phone back.
Well, as you can see, people tend to get a little bit upset when you do things without asking for permission. And even if you ask, they're being likely to say yes unless they knew you or trusted you. Consent is something that we all take for granted every day of our lives without thinking about it. And it's not this new concept that we have to learn. I mean, in my opinion, I believe that asking for permission is what makes the world a nicer and safer place to live. And most of the time, we're aware of the lines that we shouldn't cross. And if we do cross them, then people will let us know by telling us or reacting in a physical way that will make it obvious. It's not always as simple as asking for permission and getting a yes or no answer, especially from your friends, family, and other people you trust, which is why I've decided to have a chat with one of my friends and see if we can understand a bit more.
All right. So I'm going to stop the video right there. Let me see if I can exit. Oh, no. So again, that video, really simple, right? But we take these concepts for granted, like approaching someone and just taking their phone, right? You wouldn't want that for yourself. So why would you go and disrespect someone else's boundary and just take what's theirs? So again, it's a great example of just kind of everyday, just asking for permission, basic, but we take it for granted. Okay. Oops. Sorry, some technical difficulties. Gosh. Sorry, guys. 1 second. Cool. Awesome. Sorry about that. Okay, so next, again, everyday consent, clear communication, asking for permission, being respectful of others' boundaries. Okay. Now, next, so this one is going to be about consent in relationships. Okay, so this one can be a little of a sensitive topic, but it's so important to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and we'll kind of talk about it after.
So we're going to talk about consent in relationships. Consent is about asking and giving permission for something. And in this case, it's about asking permission to have sexual contact in a relationship. We're going to talk about why it's really important to feel confident talking it through with your partner, so you both know exactly how you feel and what you both want.
I remember the first time we talked about sex stuff. It was just after my 16th birthday. It was really awkward, but I knew it was something I wanted to talk about because I wasn't 100% sure that I was ready. I started talking about loads of other things when we went into the bedroom. I think she realised that I was nervous because I always talk loads when I get nervous and excited. We ended up having a really good talk about it and worked out how we felt and what we wanted to do.
So everyone knows it can be scary and nerve-wracking talking about sex. It can be embarrassing and all sorts of questions can go through your head. What if they get upset? What if they say no? What if they say yes? Talking about it is the best place to start, and you'll be surprised at how a little bit of chat can go a long way to making sure you're both ready and want the same things.
Everyone at school was talking about it, showing off and acting big about how far they'd gone with their boyfriends and their girlfriends. And I did feel pressured, but we spoke about it and we decided to keep our private life private and not be pressured by what everyone else was saying. And we decided to do things when we wanted to do them.
Just because everyone else says they're doing it, it doesn't mean they actually are, and it doesn't mean you have to. Every person is different and has their own way of communicating what they want. Talking to people either one-on-one or to a group of friends and having a proper conversation is a much healthier way to discuss consent than listening to what people shout about at college or school.
I've never been very good at talking about all that stuff, but I obviously was looking a bit uncomfortable, so he asked if I wanted to, and I didn't know what to say. I mean, I know we've done it before, but I wasn't sure I wanted to do it again yet. I think he was a bit upset and confused, but he was happy to just chill and talk.
Taking time to communicate and having the confidence to say what you're thinking is really important. But so is understanding that the answers you might get might not be the ones you're hoping for. And just because someone says no, it doesn't mean that they don't care about you. People can have all sorts of reasons for saying no. And while you may feel a little rejected and hurt by someone saying no, it's not the end of the world.
So when she said no, I was really upset about the whole thing. I thought it was someone else. Back there for a few days, I just didn't talk to her. I told my mate about it. She said I was being stupid about the whole thing. I messaged her to say sorry. She messaged me back to explain everything. And it wasn't really anything to do with me as such. And now it's just made us a lot stronger. It's probably because we're so honest with each other.
So, sexual consent with a partner can stir up a lot of complicated feelings, thoughts, and emotions. But talking about them is the best way to work out where you're both at in your relationship. It may be scary, exciting, or embarrassing, but you will be amazed at what you can learn about each other and what you both want when you talk about it. Don't just do it, talk about it.
All right. So I really like that video. It really kind of painted a picture of how consent is so important in these relationships. What is consent then? It's an ongoing mutual agreement between partners about what they want to experience. And that includes mutual decision-making and respect. So what does consent look like? It's communication every step of the way. Not just assuming the other person is comfortable with your actions. And it requires a clear yes, meaning if someone is unsure, stays silent, says maybe, or doesn't respond, they are not saying yes. Okay? What does consent not, what consent does not look like? Okay, behavior like dressing a certain way, flirting, accepting a gift, a ride, or a drink is not a form of consent. And neither is saying yes or not saying no while under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or doing so because you feel pressured or too afraid not to. These are important keys. Dressing a certain way, just saying yes under the influence of drugs or alcohol, these are not forms of consent. So let's be clear with that, okay? Understanding the term no means no. No means no. And that's basically it. And we have to be able to respect when someone says no. Okay, so obviously, that topic, I know we're kind of running short on time, but it's such an important topic to talk about. I know there's so much more that we could touch base on in terms of dating relationships and having those really tough conversations. But we did want to just present this to you and give you this information on why consent and boundaries are so important. It sets the limits and the rules we set for ourselves. It gives us a space to respect ourselves and respect others. And it gives us the stop signs and borders that protect you, that help you make good choices, what you feel comfortable with, and allow you to express the way you live, the way you love, give, and relate to each other. Okay. I also want to add here, again, these topics can bring up a lot of discomfort, a lot of sensitivity, and I understand that. And so we want to emphasize that your physical and emotional safety is the most important thing. So we want to make sure that you talk to a trusted adult. If this presentation brought up some feelings, brought up some discomfort, we want to make sure that we are here to support you. Okay. So we'll go over that and how you can reach out for support. But first, some tips on creating some healthy boundaries for yourself, right? Self-reflection, knowing what your limits are, knowing what your values are, because that's going to dictate how you move through the world. Even when you leave this school, what are your limits? What are your values? And how can you communicate those to others? Listening to your emotions, listening to when you feel discomfort, and learning how to communicate that effectively to someone. Having self-respect, having respect for others. These are huge. And lastly, being assertive. I know a lot of us can feel really uncomfortable when it comes to these conversations, but that's why it's important to reflect and be clear on what's important to us and what are the limits that we set for ourselves. Okay, so again, I just want to put out there some resources and support. My name is Miss Rosal, or Miss R, you can call me. I'm here Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I'm upstairs in room 49. There's also another therapist on campus, Miss Mariela Organista. She is a therapist also with Shields for Family. She's also in that room with me. You can always come to the staff and the Parent Center. We're here for you. Another great resource is loveisrespect.org, and I put in some information there as well. And last but not least, some hotlines and text support. If you have an urgent mental health need, please call 911. Write down these hotlines, write down these text supports. If some of us are not available for you, we want to make sure that you have the resources available to you. So that is all.
Thank you, Ms. R. Again, students, if you have any questions, any concerns, feel free to talk to us at any time. And I'm located in the Parent Center. Ms. R is located in room 49. And with that, have a great day. Thank you.